Did Ken Holland get fleeced? Let's get into it with the lead. No, come on. Ken Holland didn't get fleeced. You're all fired up in the YouTube chat for no reason. Welcome into Oilers Nation Everyday, the final live from Nashville edition of the show, brought to you by our friends at AMA Travel. As always, we're live in the Sports Closet studio and live on that Oilers Nation YouTube, which is popping. You're all fired up. You've been waiting so long for the show to start. Chell is in with the first comment and says, I think you're giving the trade a pass purely on the cap space generated. We are going to talk about exactly that. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. He is Jason Gregor. And his appearances are brought to you by The Brick. It is patio season. And if you head to their website, they have a great Canada Day sale. So you're going to want to check out their website for more on that. And also, you want to freshen up your backyard. The Brick is the spot to do it. Greg's day 2 of the NHL draft was one of the most boring things I've ever sat through.
More boring than round one. There was no trades in round one. It was an uneventful draft as far as that goes. Obviously, Oiler fans were waiting for the trade, and it transpired. Kailer Yamamoto goes to Detroit, along with Klim, Kostin, and Edmonton basically frees up the 3.1 of Yamamoto. And I guess technically $750K for Klim, Kostin, but it was more so the 3.1 for Kailer Yamamoto. And, Josh Bailey had been traded earlier in the day, and you had to add a second rounder with Bailey. Yeah. And by the way, he was making $3.5 million. Yamamoto's making $3.2 million. So the money was virtually the same. Now the cap hit was a little higher, but Chicago's buying him out anyway. So they said, hey, you know what? We'll buy the guy out and we'll take a second rounder. Detroit gets Yamamoto, they get Kostin. That's kind of the reality of the flat cap, I would say, in a sense. You know what? You can argue that, hey, did everybody know for sure Kailer Yamamoto was going to struggle as much as he did last year when he signed his contract extension the summer before? Probably not. I didn't hear a massive amount of outrage over the contract then. And when the cap doesn't go up, these are the things that happen. But here's the thing. So Klim, Kostin, fan favorite. I totally understand why. But you can find guys like Klim, Kostin. And the big thing is, I think Edmonton has a huge opportunity now to find a right winger who I think can be more productive in the postseason than Yamamoto was the last years. Because if you wanted, hey, Yamamoto, I know he scored 20 goals a few years ago. This past year, he was banged up in and out of the lineup, and that does matter in the regular season. But 2 years in the playoffs, he's been healthy. In 2 years in the playoffs, he hasn't done very much. And I just think when the thing about Yamamoto that wasn't going to change was his size. He's 5'6". He's 150 pounds. The fact that he's even in the NHL at that size is remarkable to me. He plays on the inside. He plays hard. I have no problem. I think he could contribute again for Detroit. But I don't think Yamamoto was going to help you long-term, just like I didn't think Poile to help you long-term. For 4 years ago, I said, when the Oilers are a good team, I don't think either one of those guys is a top 6. And I thought Yamamoto maybe because of his smarts, maybe, but he's a complimentary top 6. So now Edmonton can go out and they'll look for options because there'll be some. They'll be cheap, right? Obviously, everybody knows about Connor Brown. And do you want Connor Brown? Of course you want him. But does he want to sign a 1 year? Because that's all he can sign. If it's a bonus-laden contract, is a 1 year. And so he'll have to weigh the options. I will say this in conversations again with people around the Brown camp, he's considering it. Because he looks at Edmonton, and everybody does. Yeah. There is no better place in the NHL if you're a right winger who wants to come in and feel like, you know what? If I believe in my skill, I'm going to get to play with either Draisaitl or McDavid or both at differing times of the season. Like it's because look at the right wing depth. You got Zach Hyman, and then you got Derek Ryan, and you got Raphael Lavoie. That's it. That's all they got. They got no real right wing depth. So, you know what? I think Edmonton might look to sign 2 right wingers in free agency. And, if you're Connor Brown, you're like, I don't have a lot of competition there. I know if I come into Edmonton, I am starting in the top 6. And if I believe in my skill set, I'll remain there all year long.
Yep. 100%. Just catching up on what everyone's saying. Davin's in says, not bothered that Klim Kostin is gone. I think for the most part, people in the chat, like Joel's in says he'll miss Klim Shady. Sam Squatch sucks to lose Kostin. It does suck to lose Klim Kostin on an emotional level. Like as a fan, he was a fan favorite. Mm-hmm. You loved having a guy who dropped the mitts, funny post-game little clips and all of that stuff, scored some big goals in the playoffs. It looked like the Oilers had a diamond in the rough there in terms of the bringing him in as a guy who, he was on waivers a couple days before they traded for him. So it sucks to lose a fan favorite, but good organizations can find replacements for guys like Klim Kostin. And at the end of the day, like if the cap would have gone up 3 or 4 million this year.
Oh, he'd been signed already.
Yeah, right. It would have been done. It's just
like Ken Holland today said, he's competing against the offer of the KHL. Now, my understanding is that Klim Kostin was offered a KHL contract in and around the 1.75, give or take.
Yep.
Right. Plus or minus a bit. And now he didn't accept it because I don't believe he wants to go to the KHL. I believe his first option is to be in Detroit, and I expect he will sign in Detroit. I'd be very surprised if he didn't sign in Detroit. Now, he might not get the 1.7, but he might get 1.5, right? He might be closer. So he's like, you know what? It's worth it for me. Whereas Edmonton in a flat cap, they didn't really even have that much space to do it. So Edmonton, if you're looking right away and you're saying, hey, who could be a replacement? Well, it could be Dylan Holloway. Because if you look at their left wing depth chart, you've got Kane, you've got Fogle, you got Nugent-Hopkins, right? So Dylan Holloway can be that guy internally right there. By the way, his cap hit's going to be around 925. Then if you're looking, because maybe they want to try Holloway on the right side or move Fogle. Fogle can easily play the right wing. And like you could have Holloway, McLeod, and Fogle as your third line, right? Then you can have Derek Ryan as your fourth line right winger. So then you need a fourth line center. You need a second line right winger. And you need a fourth line left winger. Another name out there who I had written about a month ago that I said, I don't think he's going to get qualified. And I think he is 6'2", like Klim Kostin. He's 210 pounds. He skates really well. And he scored 16 goals back in 2021. He's coming off 2 tough years in Anaheim. Max Comtois is a player. Now, he's not as good of a fighter, but that's a small part of it to me. Max Comtois, now he's coming off a contract where he made $2 million a year, but he only scored 6 goals last year. Right? He scored 9, or is it 9 last year and 6 the year before? Either one, it was 6 and 9. He's a player, I think, that is looking to kind of rebuild his career. Mm-hmm. And sure, he would come into Edmonton and he would say, geez, fourth line, but they can use Comtois on the penalty kill a little bit. And that's the other thing. Kostin wasn't ever used on the penalty kill. Mm-hmm. So there is a chance there that you can replace a guy like that. Just like I think they can replace Kailer Yamamoto with some external options in free agency.
Interesting. Did you see Frank's text to us?
No.
He tried to take his bottle of whiskey through security and they wouldn't let him bring it. He had to throw out his Nashville All-Star or draft themed bottle of Jack Daniels.
Well, didn't just throw it out. Oh, he gave it just give it to the security guard, sell it to him or something. Tell him to leave it for us. We'll come pick it up.
Yeah, they had to confiscate it. Brutal. Yeah, he should have hit it in a bush. We could have went and got it at the airport.
God, Frank, what a rookie maneuver.
Oh, man. Frankie,
well, we even told him you can't carry that one. Actually, you were the one saying, we got to pack it in your...
we got to check it.
In the check bag. So hopefully we'll get it through. Because that is a sweet bottle, by the way.
Yeah, it was really cool. Let's check on what's going on in the Oilers Nation YouTube here. A lot of people saying, yeah, this gives Holloway a better chance. Love that. Sure. Tyler Mulick says, Teddy Bluger, you are an Edmonton Oilers 6-foot centerman. Left shot, though. I think if they add a depth center, I think I'd like it to be a right shot, ideally. Someone who's a bit more of a Nick Bukestad replacement. And Teddy Bluger can't score to save his life. He's got 4 goals last year.
Yeah,
I don't know if I love him.
Like Derek Ryan, because he's a right shot. If you do have to settle on a left shot center, you can have Derek Ryan so he can take a few draws so they can do that. But I do think Edmonton would like to have another right shot center for sure because McLeod, and by the way, Ryan McLeod's really improved his faceoffs. But McLeod, Draisaitl, McDavid, those would be your top 3, I believe, heading into the season. Ken Holland again talking about how he wants to re-sign McLeod, and you might get McLeod under $2 million. You might get him at 1.85, somewhere around there. Bouchard's obviously going to be a bridge deal, whether it's a 1 or a 2 year deal is really the only thing. And he doesn't have arb rights. And so the tough part for Evan Bouchard, this is just a business. It's nothing personal. But Evan Bouchard, if you're his agent and you're like, this is the number we know you want, but he has no arb rights. So when you get like Ryan McLeod last year, basically just had to, grit his teeth and be like, I guess I'm getting $794,000.
Yeah.
Evan Bouchard, he might want 3. But if you get to free agency and I'm just spitballing here. Let's say Connor Brown's like, I'll come on but I want 1.2 or 1 million whatever it is.
Yeah.
And if it's 1.2, it's like, well, geez, Evan, now maybe you're only going to get 2.8 instead of 3 because that was what we needed to get that deal done. Well, that's all the cap space we have. So, that's now the difference was last year, they literally went right to this cap ceiling. They're going to try to stay at 82.5-ish. 82.6 or 7, somewhere like that, to have some breathing room and accrue cap space. But, Bouchard and McLeod are going to get signed, right? Yep. McLeod will I fully expect he'll file for arbitration just to speed up the process.
Yeah. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Obviously, the trade is the big news from today with the Edmonton Oilers, but it was day 2 of the NHL draft, and the Oilers had 3 picks. In the second round, they stepped up and took Beau Akey. What a name. That is awesome.
Sounds like a country star.
Yeah, Beau Akey goes in the second round. Obviously, our boy Liam follows the NHL draft very closely. So, Liam, I wanted to get your thoughts on really all 3 of the picks, I guess. But let's start with Beau Akey. What did you make of the Oilers stepping up and taking a right shot D-man?
Oh, wow. I think taking a right shot defenseman was extremely necessary for this team. I mean, the only one they had in the organization, wasn't it, Philip Kemp? So you kind of needed to strengthen that area. And Akey is a guy, I think, is very confident with the puck and confident in making really good plays too. Has good vision on the ice, isn't afraid to carry the puck around too in the offensive zone. I'll take the shot. He seems like he has a very good hockey IQ with the puck, and something a little different that the others don't seem to have at the moment. So I like this pick. I know there was a couple of guys in the Western League that people wanted to take, but Beau Akey seems like he's got a pretty high ceiling.
Yeah, I think it was a really solid pick. I talked to our pal Stephen Ellis, who is a big guy. He's out in Ontario, obviously, so he watches a ton of OHL hockey. And he said, quote, "While most eyes have been on Brandt Clarke and Barrie this year, it's hard to ignore Akey jumping up 30 points. Does an excellent job of rushing the puck down the ice from his own zone, and his panic passes have disappeared these days." So it seems like a player who really took a step forward this last year. On our preview show, you talked about the Oilers looking at a right shot.
Yeah, and by the way, the one don't sleep on Max Wayner in the Oilers organization.
I have heard a lot of really good things about him.
Max Wayner he was a 7th round pick a few years ago. This guy has developed immensely over the last year. He is so powerful of a skater. He's huge. He's 6'3". Look at the production improvement this year for him, and then watch next year. Next year is going to be a 19-year-old. Bouchard's got a really good team, but I would argue right now he's a better NHL prospect than Phil Kemp is as far as right shot defenseman in the organization. I'm not sure Phil Kemp has the foot speed to be an NHLer, but Max Wayner is so raw and powerful, and I've talked to skating coaches about him. Like, there's so much to work with him that you watch when this guy's 21, 22. I think Oilers fans will be like, "Where'd this guy come from?"
Yeah. Interesting. It's always good to snag those guys outside of the first round. Up next at 184, the Oilers selected a goalie, Liam Nathaniel Day from Flint. I asked Stephen Ellis what he thought of this pick. He said, quote, "He is as mid of a goalie as possible." Were you surprised they ended up taking a goalie at some point in this draft?
I mean, it felt a little unnecessary considering how many picks they had in the draft and how many goalies they have in the organization. Wasn't it just yesterday we spoke, like they have 4 goalies under the age of 25. They just took one last year. I was a little surprised, but yeah, this guy, I mean, you look at his numbers, they don't jump out on the page, but people were saying it was a pretty low risk pick on the Oilers end. So, I mean, maybe they just wanted one that played in Canada somewhere too, but it seems like the Oilers really tried to stick it with us here a little bit, taking 2 Ontario guys after our running joke of not having an Ontario scout.
Yeah. What's going to happen next? They're not going to sign Connor Brown for us, Liam. Some people will look at the organizational depth chart, Gregor, and be like, okay, well, like you have Skinner in the NHL, obviously good young goalie. You got Rodrigue and Fanti. Why did you sign another goalie? Did this make sense to you, or is it just like, hey?
Well, I'll be honest. I talked to Ellis. I had a quick text exchange with a goalie guy who I trust, and he's like, you know what? Technically, he thinks Day has lots of room to grow, and so he sees potential there. Drafting goalies, man,
Pecorine was an 8th round pick.
It's the hardest position, I believe, to pick. So, you have 5 guys under 25. Now they have to look and say, okay, is Ryan Fanti just going to be an AHL goalie? Probably. I don't know. Like the guy they took last year, Gerard, has he advanced enough? Who knows? Now he can stay in Europe for a while. So, you got 2 more years of junior minimum for Day, right? Then he goes. So I don't know, safe pick. It's a 6th round pick. Like a lot of times, like you're guessing a little bit on the projection factor. I know some people say just go with the high skill guys and take that, and that's fair, but you can't just always go for high skill players. But neither one of their 6th or 7th were like a high ceiling potential type player.
Just quick note, the Oilers announcing they've officially extended qualifying offers to Bouchard, McLeod, Lavoie, Philp, and Olivier Rodriguez. So a little bit of news here as we work our way through the show. Finally, the Oilers stepped up in the 7th round, and they took Matt Copponi, who just turned 20 not that long ago. So it was his 19-year-old season that he played through. Stephen Ellis, again, reached out to him for his insight. He liked this pick. He said, third-year eligible prospect, had a solid sophomore season, becoming one of his team's most vital scoring forces. Copponi had a hot run to end the year, but was shut out in their final against BU. Consistently effective, highly competitive. Those are probably traits you like in a guy who, has the ceiling of like a bottom 6 kind of option. So it seemed fine.
You got to fill out your roster everywhere, and if you can with draft picks. If he turns out to be a full-time bottom 6 player, you're doing cartwheels from the 7th rounder, right? Like look at Kyle Brodziak, a 7th rounder who played 915 games, right? Like that's an unbelievable pick. So I'm a big fan. I'd rather draft a 19-year-old because I've had 2 more years to watch him and I can see the development. And I think I have a better sense of what he is rather than taking a 17-year-old in the 7th round who I'm like, wow, maybe I think this guy's going to improve. But because you could take that 17-year-old next season or the year after. Look at the age of draft picks. A lot of them, when you get to the 3rd+ round, there's lots of guys that are +1 their draft, their 2nd year, some of the European guys even older. And because the draft is too young, it's a fact. Okay. It's a fact. So to me, I would take picks on guys who are 19 all day, every day in the later rounds over 17-year-olds, the majority of the time.
Liam, what did you make of their 7th rounder there?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Gregor just said too. Like taking those older guys in the later rounds, like what they kind of are. And yeah, Copponi is a guy who's extremely competitive from what all the reports have been saying. Now it's back-to-back years. The Oilers have took an older college player with their 7th round taking Matt last year from the University of Vermont too. So again, it's just a low risk pick, right? And maybe he pans out, maybe he doesn't. But it's interesting to see these guys get passed over a couple of times. Like maybe they've got a little bit more to him,
Yep. Also for you, you're rocking that beautiful Sherwood Park Crusaders hat. A nice day for your other organization there with the Crew, with your boy Ty Mueller getting picked.
Yeah, Tyler Mueller went, 105 to the Vancouver Canucks. So that was pretty cool to see. He played at the Nebraska Omaha in the NCAA last season. And yeah, he got passed over once in his draft year too, but now he's going to Canucks. And so congratulations to the Mueller family. And there was 4 other players from the AJHL that got drafted. Shockingly, all from the Brooks Bandits. So there you go.
Stunner. Hey, the Brooks Bandits had a lot of.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams in the dub.
Yeah.
Right, lots of teams in the OHL, lots of teams in the Quebec Major Junior League. Like, Brooks is, you know what? There's different paths all the time for players, and I always try to remind parents and everybody about that sort of thing. So, the AJHL is a great league, especially if you're a little bit of a late developer. You're not as physically advanced at 16 or 17, right? Yeah. You can still mature, and I think it's being proven. You get 5 guys from the AJHL. It's great on the league.
Yeah, I've always said when I kind of like talk to people, in the WHL, you're going to get drafted somewhere and you're going to be kind of told where to go. When you go that AJHL NCAA route, you can pick your AJHL team. You can pick your college, like to an extent, obviously, they have interest in you, but you can choose where you go. If you want to stay close to home, stay close to home. If you want to prioritize this organization, go there. I've always thought it's a really good one. I'm not just saying that because there's the heads go to the Sherwood Park Crusaders on our show, Liam.
I'll take it either way, Tyler. Thanks for that. I'll put that in my next package next season when I'm recruiting players.
The NHL did a cool little moment at the end of the draft where Tom Fitzgerald is the GM of the Devils. He was also the captain of the first team that David Poile GM'd. Fitzgerald traded the final pick of the draft to the Predators so that Poile could make his last ever selection as the general manager, as a general manager in the league. I thought that was like a pretty neat moment. He got a standing ovation.
Took an AJHLer.
Yeah, he took an AJHLer, but ton of love for David Poile. I'm surprised he's not in the Hall of Fame already.
He seems like a prime candidate for the builder, and I wouldn't be surprised if David Poile is nominated and inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame next year in the builder category. Just when you see the reaction from so many of the and even younger GMs who have just been, starting out, guys who played as players in the league, and Bill Guerin and many other ones, like real heartfelt words that were said to David Poile throughout the weekend and the whole week, really. And hey, deservedly so. He's the epitome of what a builder is.
Yeah.
Right. He came to Nashville. He could have went to Toronto at the time.
Yeah.
right? Elected to come to Nashville and literally start a franchise from scratch. And he built Nashville into a hockey town. Now, I know they never won a cup, but they made it to a cup final. There's lots of teams that haven't won a cup since 1998.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I look at how he's into a market that was not a hockey hotbed. And now Nashville, like, think about all the things they've hosted here in the last 7 years, right? Stanley Cup final, All-Star game, draft, awards, like, and their fans show up. And they're really proud of it. It's a loud building. I talked to a lot of players. They love playing in Nashville, right? Like maybe none more than Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, the mayor of Nashville.
They, you know what? Good for David Poile. And now we'll see what Barrie Trotz has got pretty big shoes to fill.
Yeah, he certainly does. That's a wrap on our coverage of the NHL draft from Nashville, all powered by AMA Travel and AMAtravel.ca. Hey, maybe you're looking to get down to Nashville this summer. I would maybe recommend coming down here in the winter because it's insanely hot and the storms are wild. They had to come on stage at one point, and Bill Daly was like, hey, for everyone's safety, don't leave the rink for 30 minutes. It's bad outside. And like the flights were grounded for a bit in Nashville. They got hit with a crazy storm.
I'm trying to think. I could not recall. So we're on the draft floor, right? We're just about to interview Ken Holland, and it starts thundering outside, and you can hear it. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, we're that low down, and it was loud, like numerous, probably for about 5 minutes. Like it was rumbling. And so I was told by a lot of people when it storms here, it's coming down hard. And then, you know what? They needed it. It was so gross humid. Like honestly, I think it might be more humid here than it is in New York City in August, which is pretty humid, or even Ontario in the summer, which is pretty humid. Like it was, and it's not bad. It's just different. If you're not used to it, like literally we went out for a few beers last night and we're on the rooftop patio at the Jason Aldean bar.
Yeah.
And I'm there for an hour and I'm like, I'm out. I got jeans on. I'm wearing a t-shirt. And I'm just like, you know how you got that sweat inside of it? I walked home 10 blocks. I had to shower. Like I couldn't believe it. And it's not because I'm out of shape. It was just so muggy. You're just like, oh, it was like a nice, refreshing cold shower, but it's an unbelievable place. Honestly, I can see why. Like it's a Wednesday night and places are packed. And it's not just because of the draft, right? Like the draft is here and there's that's nice for certain places.
It's the bachelorette party capital of the world.
But man, and the great part is you could be 21 and you're like, cause you gotta be 21, of course, party in the US, or you could be 60 and you're still like, we're doing whatever, couples, golf trip, what have you. All age groups at so many different pubs and bars that you go to. And some of them have a very eclectic age group in all of them. I just found like this is, honestly, I had more fun in Nashville than I've had in Vegas.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like and especially, and I know you're not like a big gambler. If you're not a gambler, Vegas is kind of like, Nashville is just like that party street. Oh my God. It's unbelievable. Lower Broadway is.
You're not paying $400 a bottle service and stuff like that. Like I like Vegas. I've had fun. I don't mind gambling. I did spend 9 hours one time doing it, but
playing with TI. That's a great story. Find it on the DFO rundown. All right, there you go. Again, AMAtravel.ca. If you go to AMAtravel.ca/dreams, you can punch in what you want to do. So if you're like family friendly, there's 4 of us, we want to go somewhere hot. And then you just hit the little button and it spits out a pre-planned vacation for you. And AMA Travel takes care of it all. It's basically like having your own travel planner right there. AMAtravel.ca/dreams. Let's get to the news desk, brought to you by Papa John's, where you can use the code word Gregor. Get yourself 25% off your order. Butter chicken pizza. That's what Papa John's is cooking up. So you can give that a try. Get 25% off with the code word Gregor.
Also, if you want to try something different, get the works with ranch dressing.
Instead of pizza sauce?
Instead of the tomato sauce, yes.
Not bad.
Oh, it's very tasty. And you have to use the promo code before you put in your order. So just put in Gregor first and then go through your order and then you get the 25% off.
The news desk for Papa John's. Josh Bailey was also traded today. Bailey and a second-round pick goes to Chicago. Hawks promptly buy him out. Basically was Chicago buying a second-round pick in 2026.
100%.
Which that's how you weaponize your cap space. Why not? You got to spend the money on something.
Well, you look at Chicago. So they gave Foligno $4 million.
Yeah.
Frank Saravalli reporting that Corey Perry is going to get upwards of $3 million, maybe close to $4 on now 1-year deals. They're not going to be long-term deals, but Chicago has a boatload of cap space. They lost $21 million in Taves and Kane. 21. Right. So you got to fill that. You got to get at least to the 61.7 floor.
Yeah.
And they'll do that. So, they get a second rounder. It frees up some cap space for the New York Islanders who desperately need it. I'm very curious to see, can they add any offense in New York. Does this allow them to re-sign Scott Mayfield? We'll see. But, that kind of showed the sign, because that was for future considerations, which is basically the polite way of saying nothing goes back in return ever. There is no such thing as future considerations. There's nothing considered in the future. Okay. Maybe the GM buys you beer at last call. Maybe.
Oh, we asked Ken Holland after the draft, or someone asked him in the scrum, future considerations. Like, do you know anything about that? And he just like chuckled and looked at the camera and goes, future considerations.
Yeah. There's nothing to consider in the future is what it is. And that kind of set the bar for Oilers fans wondering, okay, because Josh Bailey, well, his cap hit was $5 million. His actual dollars paid this coming season was 3.5. Yamamoto's cap hit is 3.1, but actual dollars paid is 3.2. So very close, right? If you're looking now, people would say, hey, Yamamoto's way younger. Very true. I think it's 8 or 9 years younger. And I think he has more potential moving forward to help your team. But it kind of illustrated, hey, and so they had to include Kostin. And I shouldn't say had, but it was part of the addition because Detroit liked Kostin, and Edmonton and Kostin just, Ken Holland talked about it. Him and his agent, they've been going back and forth here, and they just couldn't come to a contract that they felt was one that was feasible for their cap.
Yeah, and listen, we have people in the chats, both on Facebook and YouTube. Like Connor says, how does Colorado get Johansson at 50% for Galchenyuk? Holland has to give away Kostin along with Yam for nothing. Okay, think about Kostin wasn't even like a positive asset.
Okay, well, Galchenyuk's basically future considerations, right? Like Galchenyuk's not under contract. That was just they needed to remove somebody off their 50-man roster. So it was essentially nothing. But Colorado's still paying him $4 million, right? And Ryan Johansson did score 60 points a few years ago. He's a 6'3", 6'4" center. Like it's different, right? Like you can't compare the two. It's just you can't, right? Not every trade is identical. But Colorado's acquiring a guy for $4 million. So what the Tyler Yamamoto people he's 5'6" and 155 pounds. He's not 6'3" and 220 pounds. I'm just sorry, he isn't. Like,
and he has injury concerns now and all that
like
stuff.
You can't. And I like Yamamoto. I'm not slagging him, but I just think at times people in Edmonton, like, they overvalue players they like. You can like Yamamoto, but it doesn't mean his value is viewed the same as opposing general managers, right? Like the fact that Ken Holland was able to get rid of Puljujärvi for nothing at the deadline was because otherwise you don't get Ekholm. Like that was a miracle trade.
Yep. I would expect the Oilers are more or less done on the trade front for the summer. I think, Kostin leaving probably means Fogle is coming back. I don't see a trade happening on the blue line. We heard Holland again today say, you need 7. He was talking about defensemen to get through a season. I mean, you probably need 8 or 9 if we're being honest. The Oilers were very fortunate injury-wise last year.
Yeah, on their blue line for sure.
Yeah, like pretty much every D-man played the whole season. Everyone keeps going, how are you going to find time for Broberg? You always say that leading into the year, and most of the time, your seventh defenseman still gets into a ton of games. So you need 7. I don't think they can just cap dump a Kulak or a CC.
Oh, gosh.
Those guys have value, too. So it would be a cap dump, but you're not looking to move those guys to free up more money.
Here's the thing. So I did a little exercise on Cody Ceci because a lot of people are like, trade Cody Ceci. Okay, so go and you can go to Cap Friendly. It's very simple. Type in right shot defenseman, active players, and then sort them by cap hit. And just to minimize your search, sort 4.5 million to 2.5 million, right? And Tyler's doing it right now as we speak.
I'm doing it on the fly.
And then you look at the defensemen, then find ones that you think are available, and then ones that are clearly better. Right? The list it's very short. Like one I came up with was Brett Pesce. We'd heard he's available. Yeah. Right? He's a defender. And I did have another conversation today, and so I want to get this because I think I know the answer, but I'm curious. So this was presented to me today. They said, if you're the Edmonton Oilers and you're paying Darnell Nurse $9.25 million, and he's done very well on the power play when given the opportunity in the past, if you want to make his contract look better, should you play him more on the power play?
Okay. I would just say no, because I think Bouchard's better at it. And you're not in the business of trying to appease fans or anything. You're in the business of winning, right?
Okay, so then his follow-up to that was, because you know that Nurse can play on the power play and the power play was fine with him on it. You go look at it. It was fine, right? Just like it was fine with Tyson Barrie and it's fine with Evan Bouchard. Why? Because 29 and 97 run the power play. Okay, 93 is pretty good too.
Remember when they traded Barrie and everyone was like, "Whoa, is the power play going to take a step back?"
No. So And his theory was, what's Edmonton's biggest weakness? It's not their power play. It's their defending 5-on-5.
Yeah.
So he said, if you can play Nurse on the power play, could you trade Evan Bouchard and get a defensive-minded defenseman like Brett Pesce? It was a real interesting debate that we had over beers. Because if people just say, what now? It's very bold and it's different thinking, but your power play is very good, almost regardless of which D-man's on it. It changes a little bit. Bouchard has the heavier shot, no question, right? There's no question in my mind about that, right? Barrie had a pretty decent shot. Nurse has an okay shot, right? Now he's a lefty to a righty, so that's where it changes a bit. But when he did run it, he was fine. So it was an interesting dynamic to look at to say, because if Bouchard scores you 60 points this year, well, now he's a $7 million defenseman.
Yeah, but like I've even heard there's been times in the past where people are like, oh, I remember in Toronto they did it. I forget who was it. Might have been Hyman, where they were like, why are they playing Hyman in the top 6 in a contract year? He's going to cost too much. Okay, good Lord. If the guy scores you 30 goals and he costs too much, you don't care because he scored you 30 goals, right? So I think with Bouchard, like, is he going to be expensive at some point? Yes. Do you just live with that? Yes. You'd rather have good players. That's a good problem to have.
No, but his point was, if the majority of his points are coming from the power play, that anybody could play, and you're already paying a guy 9.25 who can produce the points there. It was just, something it was an angle that I hadn't thought about. And I was like, you know what? You can at least have the discussion because, when we talk about who you're going to be, I said, well, would Carolina trade Bouchard for Pesce and other pieces? We're just debating this, right? Then you look and say, because what does Edmonton need to improve? They need to improve their 5-on-5 defending, right? Now, I'm not saying I would do it, but it's an interesting conversation before people freak out. You have to look at things and say, I can see the merit. It's ballsy, right? It might not be received the best way, but it is something you could consider.
Lance is in and says, did Gregor take Jay's notes for this show? Jay Downton, that is. Noted Bouchard hater, Jay Downton.
I never said anything negative about Bouchard. Whoa. The guy was talking about when you look at the big picture of your team, right? And you already have a guy that you're paying that much money for who, given albeit smaller sample size, did well on the power play. Could you justify considering it?
We talked about the news desk for Papa John's. That ties into our Sherwood Ford Giant off-season question. Only a couple of days left in the month of June, and during this month, when you go make a test drive at Sherwood Ford, they will make a donation to the Strathcona Community Hospital Foundation. The question today, Greg's, is which player are you most surprised didn't get moved this week? Because you look at Frank Saravalli's top 10 trade targets, and they are all currently still on their same teams.
Yeah, I probably would say Noah Hannafin, because I think the free agent defense crop is pretty shallow. Noah Hannafin's a solid defender. I think it's a tradable contract. I think there'd be lots of teams interested. So now I still think he's going to get dealt, but that was the one that I probably thought of all of the names. Like if you look at, Erik Karlsson, it's a pretty difficult trade to make, right? Connor Hellebuck, the goalie market, it is so, first of all, any team that acquires him is probably going to say, okay, well, we want to talk to his agent. What's he looking for in a long-term deal? Because we don't want to give up a lot if he's not signing here long-term. And then the other thing is they're like, well, why do we have to give up a lot? Name the last time a goalie got traded where you had to give up a lot. Like, it's funny. Like Marc-Andre Fleury, a Vezina Trophy winner, given away. Right? So Oiler fans, before you get mad, they gave away Yamamoto for nothing. Yeah, salary cap. Look what Vegas did with a Vezina Trophy winner. Okay, so pump the brakes on, oh my God, Yamamoto, it's a terrible trade. I think Hellebuck's a difficult one to trade, right? Mark Scheifele, interesting guy to trade. Lindholm, I think Calgary really wants to keep him. So that's what makes that one. So I think Hannafin would be my answer. You?
I think my answer is DeBrincat, just because I thought Ottawa would really want to get another first-round pick this year, or get into the first round, I should say, because they lost theirs for Chychrun, right?
Right.
So deep draft, even if it wasn't going to be top 10, like what they gave up to get DeBrincat, but I thought that Detroit pick at 17 just made so much sense. I thought Ottawa was going to be hungry to move into this draft in particular, so I think I will go with Alex DeBrincat. Liam, I want your take on this one, on the Sherwood Ford Giant off-season question. We're looking at Frank Saravalli's trade targets here, obviously. Number 5 to Montreal didn't go either. But which one are you most surprised by?
The one I'm most surprised by, I will be honest, Tyler, I was reading the chat a lot of the time you guys were talking, so I'm not sure what you said, but I'll say Noah Hannafin is the one player I'm surprised.
You're agreeing with Gregor.
Didn't get picked. Okay, perfect. Then that works out nicely.
It just seemed like, Liam, I like it.
it just seemed like Calgary were going to be pretty active this week after all the news that Frank dropped on everybody the other week, and then comes in, they trade to Foley, obviously, but yeah, I thought Hannafin would have been the one. I was wondering too on Hellebuck, like, do you guys think he's going to get moved? Like, I wonder, maybe I'm wrong on this, but didn't he just say he didn't want to be involved in another rebuild? So what if Winnipeg are just a very competitive team next season and manage to get into the playoffs again? Do you think there's a window where he stays?
But there's always the talk that he doesn't want the extension there, right? So I think at some point, if you're the Jets, you have this asset and this guy who, I mean, we just don't know what he's worth, I guess, but he's a perennial Vezina guy. At some point, I would think someone's going to offer you something that at least makes you think long and hard about it.
Well, if you're the Jets, do you wait and hope that you can, turn him into a Dwayne Rolson return, which was a first-round pick, right? Like the thing is, and we were looking at the history of goalie trades. Like
I think Fleury at that deadline went for a first, didn't he? A mini?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I have to look back on that. But like, I think you have a Hellebuck, to me, a trade for Hellebuck. I think the emotion of a team, maybe they're getting an injury to their goalie, or maybe they're like, man, we like everything about our team but our goalie. And if we get Connor Hellebuck, now we're a Stanley Cup contender. And I think the emotional viewpoint of GMs in February is going to be a lot more we can win than it is in June, right? June, you're like, yeah, I think my team's good. And you know what? I'm pretty confident in our team. So you're not as urgent in your thought process to want to make that type of trade. So I said it before, like the Jets, Wheeler probably going to get bought out, put on waivers tomorrow, I would guess. They already dealt PLD. I think they're going to deal Scheifele. I didn't think you could move all four of them in 1 4-month span. It'd be unbelievable. I don't know if the team in NHL history had ever done that with 4, top end guys like that and leaders on your own team. So I agree, Liam. I think Hellebuck's a guy who's probably traded during the season, which some might say, well, that sucks for Winnipeg. What if they're competitive? You're right. Then maybe they don't trade him. So, we'll see.
We're motoring through the show here. Let's get to, instead of a trade machine today, here's what we're going to do. We're not doing a show tomorrow because we're going to be flying back, but we will have a free agent special for you on Saturday. We'll be going live from the Sports Closet studio where Liam is currently located. Free agency coming July 1st, Canada Day. Instead of a trade machine, we're going to do a free agent machine, and we're going to rattle through some of the top names on Frank's. I got 7 guys loaded up here. Liam, you can stick around. We'll go around the horn. Drop a prediction somewhere you think could be a good fit for him. Number 1 on Frank's list is Dmitry Orlov. Boston cleared up a bit of money, but I still don't think they can bring him back. Greg's, anywhere to jump off the page to you for Orlov?
No, that's the problem.
It's weird, right?
Right. Like, I think Orlov's a really good defenseman, but if he's asking $8 million, I'm not sure he's going to get that.
No.
So where does it come down? Lots of teams could use him. Like, I really like Dmitry Orlov, but I think Dimitri's going to want to sign, I would assume, on a competitive team. So then you look at competitive teams like, hey, a team that could really use them is Toronto. No question. They got to upgrade their defense core, but I'm not sure it necessarily works for them. Tampa's obviously out. St. Louis is trying to move guys, so I don't include them. LA signed their guy, so I don't look at them. Dallas. Now, what if Dallas buys out Ryan Suter?
Oh, that's
because
interesting.
Dallas, I think they're close. I think they feel they're close. The one team who probably could use them the most, but maybe doesn't have the cap space, is the Florida Panthers. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to be my guess is the Florida Panthers.
So a Suter buyout would save Dallas 2.8. Right now, they currently have 5.1.
Yeah, so
they only have 9 forwards signed.
It doesn't free up enough.
Liam, your prediction for Dmitry Orlov?
Yeah, well, I mean, no one has any money, so it's quite difficult to put a competitive landing spot on him. I'm just looking here. Could Detroit possibly be a landing spot for Orlov?
That's an interesting one, actually.
They got money. Wants to take another step, right? A lot of money, and they've got a lot of guys signed up already.
Yeah, they only have I'm assuming that Lindstrom they'll resign, but he's going to be dirt cheap. You look at their blue line, like Mo Sider. Now he's in the final year of his deal, then he's going to get a big raise. But other than that, Sherratt 4.7 for a few more years. Jake Wallman they just signed. Oli Mata for a few. That's actually a really good option, right? Because I think Detroit needs to take a step.
Yeah,
And what better way to do it than to get a quality veteran defender? I like Dmitry Orlov a lot. That's, you know what? I like that pick.
I'll go with Buffalo for mine. I think you can slot him in. Your top 4 next year: Dahlin, Samuelson, Orlov, Power. That'd be a pretty nice top 4. And they got money as well. 14.5 million cap space.
Yeah, their problem is that Dahlin and Owen Power are both due next year.
Yeah.
So I don't think they want Orlov to eat up. I think all their money is going to be going to those 2 guys the next year.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a fair point too. Up next on the list, we got Tyler Bertuzzi at 4.75. Doesn't sound like he's going to be going back to Boston. You talked about that on the DFO rundown, Greg's. Tyler Bertuzzi. It's an interesting one.
I'm going to say the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, that'd be a fit there. Hey, you talked about lifestyle with him.
Yeah, there's 2 things. He brings a little bit more bite than some of the guys they have, because a lot of their wingers, I find, change the name bar. They're similar in how they play. And now Bertuzzi isn't that robust, but he's got a little bit of a jerk in him, which I think they need. And so I will say the Carolina Hurricanes.
Liam?
Could Pittsburgh be an option for him? What I'm just thinking of, like, Dubas was very interested in bringing into Toronto, wasn't he too? So a little bit of money, bring some scoring. I mean, maybe not. He only had 8 goals last season. Hopefully he gets that back, but could Pittsburgh be an option for him?
$15.2 million in cap space. They got 9 forwards, 60, and a goalie signed.
Yeah, they got 7 forwards already making 5 sheets. So like, they just acquired Riley Smith. Had they not acquired Smith, then I think it would have worked.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's true.
I'm going to go off the board a lot. I think I'm going to say the Seattle Kraken. They also have 5 forwards making $5 million or more next season, but no one making more than 6.
Yeah,
I think Bertuzzi would fit into that cap structure of just bringing another guy between $5 to $6 million bucks and works hard, should fit in well with what that group kind of likes to do, adds a little bit of a layer of depth to them. What do we got? Who's the next name on the board here? JT Compher. If Boston could make the money work, they would be my answer here to grab a centerman down the middle. Gregor, anyone stand out to you on Compher?
Oh, yeah. No, I think it's Boston. Like, name a team that needs centers more than Boston. Like, honestly, you Bergeron and Krejci. Cam Neely said it yesterday that they're planning on not having either one. Now, I think Bergeron, he could sign, what's the regular season start? October 12th.
Yeah.
I don't even know the date. He could sign literally before training camp, the day before, and they'd be like, yeah, no problem. We'll figure it out. So I think they still got to sign one, because I think the Krejci option to come back is much lower.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, JT Compher or Ryan O'Reilly are the 2 centers. I think they're going to try to go get one of them, right? Like, they're losing Bertuzzi, they're losing Orlov, they've lost Taylor Hall, like lost Foligno. They got some cap space now, so they got to go get a center. So yeah, Compher makes sense to me.
Liam?
I will not be swaying away from the Boston Bruins with you guys too.
Let's hope it happens then. We'll see if our friends at Betway have any free agency odds up. We'll just do the top 5 on Frank Sports. So number 4 is Ryan Graves. Who needs a top 4 D-man? Probably a handful of teams. Maybe if Florida thinks Orlov, like if they can't get in the mix for Orlov, maybe Graves is a guy like they check down to.
Yes, I'm not sure where I stand on Graves. For some reason, he doesn't wow me, but that doesn't mean he can't be good, right? Like he does a lot of things well. He's big, what you want for a defenseman. He's not flashy by any stretch of the imagination, but the Washington Capitals, I think, are a team that they got to improve their defense core. There's no question about that. So they would be one option for me. And the team who loves their blue line, I wonder if the Nashville Predators do that, knowing that, you know, Tyson Barrie's a UFA at the end of the season, right? Dante Fabro, maybe they make a move. So that would be my little bit of a wild card, would be Nashville.
Not bad. Liam, do you have a hot take on Ryan Graves?
I think I might have a hot take on Ryan Graves. Could the Arizona Coyotes be a possibility? I mean, they've been talking about wanting to be better and improving everything, right? They got a ton of money. He just feels like a guy who's probably going to get overpaid somewhere, and Arizona might be the team that wants to do it for a few years.
Yeah, hey, we've been hearing about the fact that they are serious about contending all of the sudden.
Well, I know why. Because they finally realized, geez, we can't just suck balls forever and have everybody be like, hey, great, you know what? Oh, this is the nice little team. Ha ha. They're basically saying, no, everybody's rejected you because you had a loser mentality. in your own community. They're like, no, we don't want you. We're not building a ring for you here. So I think the owner's like, well, we got to at least show them that we're trying to win. So, that makes sense. I think the other team is the Anaheim Ducks. They got a boatload of money. Yep. And Ryan Graves, to me, looks like a D-man who might get overpaid by a team. And those two have the most cap space.
Okay, who was the last name on the board there? Alex Killorn. That's an interesting one. Did you say Buffalo on the DFO rundown?
Yeah. I like him for Buffalo because I look at the Sabres and the position they're at, right? You've got Thompson. Like now you've still got a few years of Skinner. That's the challenge. Although Skinner actually had a really good year last year. I'll give him credit.
Bounce back in a couple seasons.
But Dylan Cousins and Tage Thompson are on really good contracts. Yes. Right.
And it was just announced Jack Quinn's going to miss like 6 to 8 months.
Yes.
So there you go.
Now he doesn't open up a ton of cap space. Alex Tuck, like Victor Olofsson, I think is a prime guy that they look and say, okay, can we fit Killorn in this year, knowing that Olofsson is done? His 4.7 would come off next year. Now the cap goes up. So I think for 1 year, because you'd basically say we're going to take Killorn and we can afford both of him and Olofsson. But then next year when we have to give Dahlin and Power their big raise, plus we get an increase in salary cap, that's when we can, just move on from Olofsson. Not that he's a terrible player, but I think Killorn, like if you look at Buffalo, who is their veteran guy that's really going to be the voice in that room? Kind of like New Jersey went out and got Palat. And even though he got injured, the players talked about how much Andre Palat really meant to them. And just conversation. The Edmonton Oilers talked about Duncan Keith. And there's legitimacy in this. Yeah. Killorn's been, and he scored 64 points last year as well. So it's not like he's an old guy who can't produce. I'm curious about the term and the contract, but the Buffalo Sabres, to me, a team that's ready to take the next step, I think they should mirror what New Jersey did last year because it worked for the Devils.
Liam, Killorn.
Well, there was reports today, wasn't it, that Tampa Bay is going to do whatever they could to keep him, but that seems difficult with the money situation they have. Do you think maybe Columbus could be someone? They might have to move out another player to bring him in, but they're looking for a centerman, right? Maybe he can fit in there.
Yeah, Killorn. No, I don't know about that. I do love that they got Fantilli though. You probably couldn't go wrong between Carlson and Fantilli. Liam, how stunned were you that the draft broke the way it did? I forgot to ask you about that off the jump.
Yeah, I think those top three were all pretty much locked in to be who they were going to be. And
in some order.
Yeah. Then there was kind of some things out there that maybe Carlson might go ahead of him. I just don't think it's really a bad decision on any of them, right? Fantilli's going to be a stud. Carlson looks to be an elite player too. And then obviously Bedard was going to be Bedard, but I think the draft really got interesting at fifth overall, and Montreal Canadian fans were not very happy despite getting the number one defenseman in the draft. So we'll kind of see what happens there.
Got the number one D-man in the draft, and you've built up a good core of young forwards already. Like, I know drafting for need is a dangerous game to play, but I didn't hate it. I'll just say it about San Jose and Montreal. You should have taken Michkov.
Well, San Jose, I think more. Like Montreal, I understand it. Like everybody's like, oh yeah, all these skilled forwards. I'm like, yeah, smaller skilled forwards.
Yeah.
And if you have a a nice little team, then that's what you have, a nice little team. And Montreal, you can't. They just got Newhook, right? They've already got Caulfield. They've got Suzuki. Like, how many guys under 6 feet do you want to legitimately think you're going to compete? And if you're taking a guy there, like lots of scouts are very high on David Reinbach, very high on him. So I didn't mind that pick at all.
As Carey Price said, David Reinbacher.
No, tough one.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Drew, everybody's drawing a blank sometimes. It happens.
A lot of pressure. I think it's one of those things where you probably walk up onto the stage and be like, this is easy. I'm Carey Price. I've done public speaking all the time. And then you get up there and you're like, oh no, there's a lot of people in here. It was fun being in the building for the first round. Liam, what's up?
Was there a pick within that first round that seemed to stun the audience, or everyone kind of in there?
The second overall one, definitely, when Anaheim said that they were taking Carlson, the building was kind of like thrown off a little bit. Like, we were hearing rumblings in the media room that like, hey, Anaheim is leaning Carlson, like this could be happening. But obviously, like, the crowd wouldn't have known that. So when everyone's thinking Fantilli and it ends up being that, 2 definitely threw everyone for a bit of a loop. But everything else, not really.
Not really. Because to be honest, after you get to 10 or 12, unless there's people who study it, like I'm never one to like now. Yessi Niittymaki is still the one pick that I remember being like, what the, like literally. Because you're flipping through, and because they used to have centrals and there wasn't nearly as many online, virtually none at that point. And you're going through it and you're like, what? this guy's ranked like not even the top 70. Like, what is happening? Like, and obviously it turned out to be well, like, although he's a sick dancer, by the way. Absolutely. That guy could crush the planks on the dance floor. But that's the one kind of pick. And there's been a few other ones over the years. But I remember a few years ago when Mo Sider got drafted, a lot of people like, what? So I find it interesting that some people will be so strong. And I'm like, oh yeah, how many times you see that guy play live? Well, none. Well, how can you be that certain when you've never seen the guy live and you watch him on video? And video's nice, but you don't see everything when it's on video.
Yeah, and like I saw people on Twitter with whoever the Red Wings took were like, "Oh my God, what are they doing there?" And it's like, I'm pretty sure Steve Yzerman knows what he's doing.
Well, and his scout, right? Yeah. It's more so they're like the head scout. The Mo Sider pick gives them a lot of grace period because there's a lot of people saying what, and that's turned out to be unbelievable.
Aaron is in on the Facebook and says, I've always wondered what future considerations even means. Who decides what this is? These type of deals should be banned. It's just a polite way of saying for nothing.
Yes. Future considerations is in the future, we'll consider nothing.
Take us out for dinner next time you're in the city.
Yeah. It's basically because you don't want to insult a professional athlete, right? Hey, he's traded for, because you can't, whatever it is, right? You just can't do it. So you say future considerations. It's the polite way of saying nothing. It's happened in multiple trades in recent history.
It's not a problem.
So, yeah. Now, way back when future considerations actually meant that you would negotiate later. Now, sometimes I remember hearing stories like in the 80s and stuff where future considerations and, they would end up sending like a pay for a whole bunch of off-season training and different things like that. And so, cases of beer and flats. So it was a little bit different in the past. Now it was
a different league.
It's not as juicy. It's basically future considerations, which means a whole lot of nothing.
Yep.
Maybe sometimes it might be a bottle, but
first round with the GMs in the first round, we're all doing their jokes about Tootsies. Bill Guerin and
Bill Guerin's all over it.
Yeah,
that was good.
Brad Living. Let's wrap up the show with our Betway Other Sports Report. How about the fact there was a perfect game in the majors last night? Do you see that?
Yeah, but
24th perfect game of all time.
Now, is that the same guy though that beat the hell out of
Yeah, he's a loser.
I don't even want to say his name. Like, I'm sorry.
24th one. Tonight, the Jays are in action. They're wrapping up their series. It's the rubber match against the San Francisco Giants. Chris Bassett on the bump for Toronto, looking to get things straightened back out. He's kind of had a bit of a rough patch here. Jays plus 135 on the run line, and they are at home, so not a terrible spot. It's been weird, such a weird vibe around the Jays, but I saw a tweet a couple of days ago that they were the best team in the American League in the month of June. And there were rumors in June that they wanted to fire their manager. It has not felt that way at all.
Well, what's interesting, by the way, we were both bang on the other day when you said like lock and load. Gosman with the Ks. He ended up with 12.
Yeah.
But Bassett's interesting because he talked about how he's going away. He was calling his own pitches there for a while. It was not working. He's thinking too much. And which is funny. I'm like, why the hell would you change something?
Yeah.
You weren't calling your pitches. You were absolutely killing it. And now suddenly like, well, I'm going to call my pitches. It's like, sometimes you wonder like, what? Why would you even consider that as an option? But, the Jays also Vladdy Guerrero going into the home run derby. Going back in and announce it.
I actually like this. The big problem with Vladdy is his launch angle. He's pounding everything into the dirt.
Yeah.
Go to the home run derby. Guys are always like, I don't do the home run derby. It'll mess up my swing. It can't mess up Vladdy's swing. It could go launch nukes for 30 minutes on national TV. Maybe you'll get your home run swing back. I love that he's doing it.
Yeah. And you know what? I like what he said. He goes, my family's been asking me to do it again. Because I get it. It's fun. Like when he did it before, man, it was amazing to watch it. Like it was quite the display. Like he's obviously a ridiculous power hitter. There's no question about it. And when he gets in his rhythm, the guy can mash the ball. So I like the home run derby. Like I think the format, unfortunately, I'd like him to cap it at a certain number so they're not tired by the final. That's the only thing I don't like about it.
That's a good point. Vladdy's favorite BP pitcher, he says, of all time is still John Schneider. So John Schneider is going to go and pitch in the home run derby as well, which is cool. Betway will have odds on that.
Would he be the first manager who's ever been? I wonder.
He might be.
That would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Somebody baseball guy would know that. Has another manager being the pitcher in the home run derby. I love it if he does it. Like it's you know what? And hey, well, obviously, if you're John Schneider and Vladdy asks you, of course you're going to do it. Right? Like, what do you say? No.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
All right, there you go. Shout out to Betway 19+. Please play responsibly. Okay, here's what's coming up in the next couple of days here, both Daily Faceoff wise and Oilers Nation wise. Tomorrow, DFO Live, McKenna and Saravalli, they're going to do a full free agent preview, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. No Oilers Nation every day tomorrow, but an episode of Oilers Nation Radio available wherever you get your podcast from in the afternoon. Saturday, this bad boy, 9 a.m. Mountain Time on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. 2 hours. Myself, Saravalli, all the Daily Faceoff staff are going to be there. Jay Rosehill and Mike McKenna going to be back for the Players Room as well, which was a lot of fun on deadline day. And then after Free Agent Frenzy, we're going to be doing an Oilers Nation version of it live right here, Oilers Nation YouTube, same time, noon Mountain Time. So we should have a little bit of news around the NHL. I don't know if we're going to have Oilers Nation or Oilers specific news early on July 1, but you never know.
I'd be a little surprised. Ken Holland has said like they're looking kind of shopping in the bargain bin.
Yeah.
Right. And bargain bin isn't a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we usually July 1st is overpayment day. In the majority of rarely are overpayments made, later on. Now there's been, I can't remember, but there was one big name player who took his time and then he still got his massive contract on like July 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the big ones go early. Not that there's a huge crop of guys who should be getting big contracts, but I think look for Edmonton, as Ken Holland said today, if it's high price spending on July 1st, well, then they're definitely not in. But if it's controlled spending, or maybe it goes down a bit, then they can get in the mix. I think the one guy who could go on day one, potentially for the Oilers, is Connor Brown, because everybody knows the situation with Connor Brown. If he's going to come to Edmonton, it's on a bonus-laden contract for 1 year. Or he takes the 2 or 3 or whatever 4-year security that another team potentially could offer him. But the thing that's intriguing about Edmonton is he has a really good relationship with Connor McDavid.
Yep.
I think he's a player who sometimes, like, he just finished a 3-year deal at 3.6, right? Like, it's not like he should be struggling for money.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can look and say, you know what? I think I might bet on myself here. I'm going to get, because he'll still get the same money for 1 year.
Yeah.
It would just be in bonuses, which are going to be very attainable. Like we're talking, you get $500,000 when you play 10 games, and you get another $500,000 when you play 20 games, similar to Bergeron. So Bergeron ended up getting $2.5 million in bonuses on a base of 2.5. But if you're Connor Brown, so you're still going to get 3, because I don't think, Tyler, that he's really going to command more than 3.2 or 3 over 3 years, right? Like I don't see it. So if you can get that same on a 1-year deal, but you have the potential to play with McDavid or Draisaitl and score 20 goals, or maybe score 25. Well, now suddenly you're $4 million player, right?
And the cap goes up $7 million next year, and teams are willing to splurge it. We know how dumb GMs get when they're given extra cap space.
Yeah, and the other thing about Brown is, like, Connor Brown is a smart, reliable player.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's a 40-point guy. He can score you 20 goals. What can he do potentially with McDavid and Draisaitl? We've seen it. Not everybody does it, but we've seen lots of guys do it.
Jason Gregor, you're on the show all week. Your appearance brought to you by The Brick. I am going to sleep very good tonight because it has been a long week. But if
you get a mattress right now at The Brick, they got good sales.
If you've been tired of waking up, it might be your mattress. With The Brick's 180-night mattress satisfaction guarantee, you can sleep more comfortably knowing you got the right mattress. Also, if you head to thebrick.com, it's the Canada Day sale, 25% off sectionals. Also, big shout out to Papa John's for hopping on the show this week as well. Code word Gregor, and you should just set a reminder in your phone every Tuesday that it's Terrific Tuesday, and you can get 50% off at papajohns.ca. AMA Travel, we're only down here living it up in Nashville because AMA Travel puts on some great experiences and helps us with all of our travel at Oilers Nation. We're on the horn. We're talking about some Nation vacations for next year, so stay tuned for that. Betway, Sherwood Ford for the Giant off-season question, and of course, we're always live from the Sports Closet studio. Liam, I know you miss me, buddy. I'll be home tomorrow. I'll see you Saturday, all right? Okay, he's waving down there. Okay, thanks to everyone watching on the YouTube. Greg's, how did you like internet broadcasting?
It was fun times, man. I enjoyed it. It's a good time. It's good on Tyler for slugging through today. I wish I would have had a video of your face. For those who don't know, so Ty shows up this morning. Hey, I was out. What time are you out? I was out till 4 a.m. I'm like, good for you. Here we are. The draft starts at 10. And then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna go get a sandwich or something. And I wait about 45 minutes. I'm like, I think I'll go eat. So I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't see Ty. And then like half an hour later, I'm up. He comes back and he's all kind of glossy eyed. I'm like, where were you? He goes, man, I wasn't feeling good. I had to go have a nap. So he beelined home he waited for the Oilers pick in the second round. Right. Then he beelined home for the 3rd and 4th, but was back for the 5th round. So I give you credit for showing up. Some guys might have just tapped out. They might have just tapped out, but you powered through. So
I came.
kudos.
I was like, the Oilers pick round 2. I got to be there. They made the pick. I went and talked to Beau for a little bit, and then I was like, you know what? They're not picking till round 5. The hotel's like 5 minutes away. I can go get some rest and try to reset. Tyler Mulick wants to know if we can end the show with a little Sue Johansson segment. Can they ask you questions?
Sue, buddy, that would be unbelievable. I would do it. Like, did you ever listen to Sue Johansson?
No, I was too young.
Sue Johansson. Oh my goodness, the Sunday night sex talk show. Like, I'm telling you, man, I learned so much from that. Like I remember, because you were guys and you didn't really know some stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember a few times to be in the car, and no one would say anything, right? Like, people would call in and they'd ask these questions, and you'd kind of like giggle out loud, like, haha, but secretly you're like, yeah, I'm kind of curious about what the answer is going to be. Yeah. And so she goes, hey, if you can't laugh about sex, then you shouldn't be doing it. And so she had so many unique conversations about it that really made it comfortable, because it's such a taboo situation for so many people. Dude, I would do the Sue Johansson sex talk questions all day long. Fire them off. That'd be amazing. There's lots of questions about that, because it is something that a lot of people, it's funny how ingrained it is in society and how little it's talked about.
Oh, Waz goes, can I put this on TikTok? Waz, buddy, you do you. Yeah, rest in peace to a Canadian legend, Sue Johansson. Shout out to
93 years of age, and she was a nurse, and she was kind of, I think she started doing that show like in her 50s, and like there were some really raunchy questions. Like, people would call in, and it was like, you got to remember, this was pre-internet time. Like, this was, I got to think, like, well, at least for me, I think I was like early 20s. So like mid 90s when I remember listening, it was on Sunday nights, and sometimes you'd have a game and you drive back from the game, right? You'd be by yourself, do Sunday night sex shows on 7:00. And man, like, it was like, you could learn a lot of stuff from Sue. I guarantee you, anybody out there who listened knows exactly what I'm talking about, because there was a lots of things, and she took the taboo away where it wasn't uncomfortable. Like, there were some conversations, like people would ask questions here. I'm like, oh my, I have no idea what they're talking about right now. Like, oh, it was so funny.
Big shout out to everyone down in Nashville for making this possible. Big shout out to my boy Jacob Kendall, who is in town as our intern, boots on the ground in Nashville. He has changed this backdrop 100 times over the weekend.
And reminded you every time to take the light off before you break it.
Yeah, actually, he probably saved the company a handful of dollars just from reminding me to take down our backlight. Shout out to everyone who watched the show today as well. There was a ton of you in the YouTube chat. If you haven't subscribed already, do it, and then go to the Daily Faceoff YouTube and subscribe there as well. Frank says I can't take vacation until the DFO YouTube is at 7K for subs, so please help me out. We'll be back Saturday, free agent special. Again, Gregor, you were awesome this week. Everyone was down here in Nashville. We'll chat with you guys on Saturday.